Welcome back to the Sideshed podcast. Before we get started, last month we ran this crazy promotion over at Tradie Web Guys where we were giving away $5,500 websites to anybody that came on board as a marketing client of ours. As you can imagine, we got smashed with inquiries and many people took that up, dozens in fact. However, one thing that I didn't consider at that point was a lot of businesses came back and said, listen, our annual budget is expired because in Australia, our end of financial year is the end of June. Is there any chance we can do this, extend this into the next month? At which point I said, well, no, but now I'm thinking, in fairness, we probably should have considered that. So we are going to run this out for an extra month. So if any of you guys out there do want to claim a free $5,500 website, then you have the opportunity to do so. Head across to tradie.wiki/free. If you're watching this, there's the link right there. If you're listening again, tradie.wiki/free, fill the form in, and we'll go from there. Enjoy the show. If I could show you a way that you could reduce your marketing spend and 10x your conversions, you'd probably call BS on me. But in this podcast, I'm going to show you how over at Tradie Web Guys, which is our digital agency, we help our clients achieve the following things. First of all, how to position yourselves as the go-to experts within your vertical. Secondly, how to create useful and relevant content. And third, and most importantly, how you can improve and adapt your processes to fast track your results in this area. Hello, listeners and viewers, and welcome back to the Sideshed podcast. My name is Matt Jones, and you are joining me for a podcast which in truth I should have probably recorded 3 or 4 years ago. Lately, I've done this presentation for other partners of ours that we work with. I've spoken on this topic on other people's podcasts, and I thought, well, after 346 episodes, it's probably time that I actually do this on our own podcast, because in truth, this is something that we practice so much over at our agency at Tradie Web Guys. And it's really important. And it's a fantastic way that you guys can reduce some of your marketing budget and improve your conversions. Now, before I jump into this specific topic, I'm going to give you a bit of background here. Over at the agency, our job really is to help our clients stand out from the noise. Now, that does involve, of course, lead generation tactics such as SEO and Google Ads and all the traditional things. But the thing that we really like to do and we really like to work with them on improving is how can we make you stand out as an expert in your vertical? Now, the reason we do that is because if you don't, you fall into the trap of always having to compete against the other businesses in what we like to call noise. Now, noise is essential, don't get me wrong, and you still have to play in that game to a degree, but the defining, I suppose, realization is when you can put two businesses parallel next to each other who essentially run the same marketing tactics, and the one that has better trust and rapport and is better positioned as the expert will always have a higher conversion. So I encourage you guys to take some notes on this and reach out to us at the agency if you want to have a chat. But what I'm talking to you today about, again, positioning yourself as the expert, how to build trust and rapport with your customers, and regardless of whatever marketing you're doing out there, I'm going to talk to you about some opportunities where there is, without question, low-hanging fruit, and I have yet to come across a business that is doing this as well as I would like them to, myself included. I suppose what I'm trying to say here is there's a lot of opportunity, there's a lot of potential here for you to actually get real results, and I encourage you to take on board what I'm saying, because this is not guesswork. We see this time and time again. We practice it religiously, we teach it religiously, and through our programs, we roll these things out. So I want you guys to comprehend and understand what I'm talking about here. The caveat here is, and I've said this over and over again, what I'm going to teach you guys is stuff that you don't know. It's things that you're not familiar with. It's things that you've never learned at TAFE or at college. It's things that you need to go about learning on your own. And when that happens, these things are uncomfortable. Now, they're uncomfortable for a number of reasons, and all of those reasons are essentially excuses, and I'm not going to get into them. But the point I'm trying to make here is, if you want the outcome, you've got to do the thing. Okay, so Forget about what the excuses are and forget about the obstacles that get in the way of it. If you want to be positioned as the expert, as the authority, if you want to be able to reduce your marketing budget and improve your conversions on the traffic you're already getting, you've got to do the thing. Forget about your excuses. I don't care. Okay? They're completely irrelevant, right? So let's just clean the slate of those straight away. And let's just pretend for a moment that you guys that are watching this and listening to this right now are prepared to do what it takes. Now, here's the I suppose, let's call it a revelation. These things that we are going to need to do actually become quite simple on one condition. They become part of your process. Now, you've heard me talk about process on the show over and over and over again, and the reality is, until what we're talking about today becomes an actionable part of your weekly or monthly or daily cadence, and something that you can not only check off and be accountable to, but something that you can also make part of the completed project, if you will. What we're talking about today will always get relegated on the list of important things to do if you don't do that. When we're talking about positioning yourself as an expert, the first thing I want to jump into is, well, the first thing that we covered, right? It's the mindset side of things. Don't worry, forget about the excuses, not interested, okay? So when we're talking about laying the foundations for positioning yourself as the expert, the things that you need to have in line are the following. First and foremost, we've got to have our branding and our messaging clarified. Now, the reason that we go down this step first is because if you don't have these things in line, it makes it essentially impossible to market because you don't know who you're talking to and you don't know what you're talking about. So although you might understand fully what you guys do when you're out on the job, if you don't communicate that, no one else knows. And what we're talking today about, guys, is telling other people. We want to get the message out there. We want to put you on a pedestal. We want to make sure that people understand with clarity what it is you do and why you do it and who you do it for. So you need to have that dialed in. Now, that's something I can't help you with, but I will give you some tips on how you can define those things. My first tip is don't always chase the biggest ticket item in your business, because very often that can lead to a poor customer avatar. And if you're not sure about what an avatar is, it's essentially the customer profile that you want to work with. So for example, if you've got, say, a handful of products and services, and you likely will, and some of them have a much higher sale ticket, but when you break that down, that item, you might find that it takes up far too much of your company labor. It takes up far too much time resource. It might take up far too much stress communication. It might take up too much of your callbacks, like whatever it might be. So you need to get real clarity around, okay, well, which products do we actually want to specialize in? Once you've got that message dialed in, and again, I say this all the time, it's really important to niche yourself within a business. If you're a startup business, you'll probably find yourself at the early stages going through this cycle of, well, we just want to do everything because we need the money. Okay, I get it. I've been there myself. That's fine. But please have your receptors opened, because once you start the vehicle moving, once you get momentum, inevitably you are going to be able to steer the ship in the direction that you want to take it, which may be towards specific services. It might be towards specific micro niches. It might be towards a specific customer avatar, so on and so forth. So as business owners, take that on board, because you can't steer a parked car. And if you're just getting started, sure, throw mud on the wall and see what sticks, but don't fall into the trap of always wanting to target all of those things, because it makes it very, very hard to cast your message and get that clear. So for context, we have loads of clients, right, who have been around for quite a long time. And after getting the vehicle moving, they found themselves, say they're plumbers, and when they started off doing residential or every sort of plumbing they possibly can, now they are strictly into commercial maintenance, and they only work with commercial maintenance clients. Or they are plumbers, and after a while, they've just basically focused entirely into block drains and pipe relining. Or they're hot water specialists, and after a while, they've realized that their niche, their sweet spot is in home automation and electrical vehicle charge stations, whatever it might be. The point I'm trying to make is get the vehicle moving, have your receptors on, and figure out where you want to focus your attention if you want to get market impact. It's a nightmare for us when we work with companies and when we're onboarding them and briefing them, putting them through our onboarding process, and we say, hey, who do you want to target? What do you do? What do you specialize in? And they say, well, we want to be the go-to plumber in Sydney. Like, it's a marketing nightmare because it's insanely competitive. There's millions of other people falling into the same trap, and you will essentially become part of the noise. So what I'm going to talk to you today about, beyond laying the foundations, is, how we can sort of navigate and compete with some of these other organizations effectively. But while we're on the topic of laying foundations, what you really need to consider is the following thing. Now, this is a true conversation that I had with a client only over the last couple of weeks, actually, where they came to us. They've been working with a coach who's recommended that they change their business name, and they've recommended they change it to something that is really, I see a huge mistake in businesses today when they're naming their organization, because they try to be clever and they try to go down the path of doing something they think is catchy, but all it does is throw them in the bucket of noise. And what I'm talking about is this guy's got a fantastic business name already. It's really unique. No one else has it. So there's clearly defined, like he's the only one who has that name, which is fantastic and it's very marketable. And he's working with a coach who's saying, okay, we should change your name to like electrical doctor or electrical surgeon or something like that. Now, this rang an immediate bell for me because I've had this conversation with clients over the years, literally hundreds of times. I'm not even kidding. In truth, the reason I'm probably going to extract this part of the podcast and I'm going to save it as onboarding content so that clients of ours can actually watch it, because there is nothing worse than having a name that is so closely tied to dozens and dozens and dozens of other businesses, and more to the point, having a name that potentially is exactly the same as another business in another country. And this is a mistake we see all the time. People will go and secure these names that they think is really clever, like, the Mr. Drain Doctor or whatever it could be. And you jump on Google and there's Dr. Drain, there's the Drain Surgeon, there's the Drain Dentist, there's all this kind of stuff, and they're all so closely aligned. And then you jump into another market like in America and they've got exactly the same businesses with exactly the same names. And what that basically means is, in some cases, and this does happen, you will end up generating traffic for other companies. And worse than that, in situations where the other company is not as professional and not as good as you, they might get a negative review accidentally posted on your channel, which then is not, and they're not even a client of yours. They've just accidentally made that mistake. And we've seen that a number of times happen over the years. So laying the foundations, I really encourage you guys. There is nothing better in today's day and age than being unique and having a name that is defining and it's yours and no one else has it. So don't fall into the trap of slipping down that whole, we want to create a business name that's really like everyone else's, because that is not the case. And the other thing as well, while we're on the topic, gone are the days where you can just go and secure a domain name which ties to what you do and where you do it and think that's going to hold any credibility in terms of search and things like that on Google. For example, 15 years ago, you see companies pop up all over the place, which might be, Plumber Camaret, Plumber Cremorne, Plumber Mossman, blah, blah, blah. There are all these little microsites happening. And Google eventually said, you know what? This is a crap concept, because essentially we've got dozens of shitty little websites here, and the main website is just as bad. We want to take all of these little websites and put them onto the one website. And that's where they introduce things like page authority and domain ranking and these kind of indicators in SEO, which essentially is there to say, build your asset and forget about all these little microsites and all this junk, because we're not interested in that and we're not going to give you credit. The things you want to consider when you go down this path, the first thing that I would do, and the first thing that I encourage people to do, in truth, before they even register the business, is go and check what's available from a domain name perspective and from a social media handle perspective. So do your research there first. And the reason I say do that first is because you don't want to get into a situation where you go and register your business name, as great and as fancy and fantastic and unique as you think it might be, and then you head across to Facebook and you find that someone's already got it. Now, the difference between a domain name and a social media handle is your domain name is typically local. So in Australia, we have .com.au. In New Zealand, you have .co.nz. In Canada, you have .ca, so on and so forth. However, social media, it's one platform for everyone. So the chances of you claiming it are considerably less, and the chances of somebody else having that name are considerably greater. So make sure you do your research there. Make sure the assets are available, and then once they are available, claim them, because it won't cost you anything. And I say claim all of them. Go through even the ones you would never ever expect you'll use, like maybe Pinterest and Twitter and all these things. Just claim them, because no one else can if you have them. I would also at that point in time claim domain names that are similar to it. So the reason you would do that, and you might want to claim, if you're in Australia, for example, you'd claim the .com.au and the .com. You might claim the .net, the .net.au, whatever. Again, essentially, you're just trying to protect your brand, okay? Then you go and register the business. That's quite a simple process. If you're not sure about what you're doing, then get your accountant or someone to help you set that up. But essentially, you want to register the business name, and then you can also register trading names. So you've got the registered business name, which is normally, like here in Australia, that's the proprietary limited organization if it's a company. And then underneath that, you can have trading names. So you could have, Matt's Plumbing, proprietary limited, trading as Matt's Drain Doctors, whatever, right? Like you can do that. So securing the asset, get those foundations secured. That then obviously enables you to set up things like business emails. And if you're not using a business email, you are absolutely kidding yourself. I tell you right now, that's the one thing you should be doing right now. If you're using an @Gmail, an @Hotmail, or an @Yahoo, or an @BigPond, or whatever the heck it is, stop it. So go and get a professional business email set up. It will improve your conversions tenfold, and it doesn't cost a lot. Like we set companies up with Google Workspace every single week. And I think for like an annual subscription, I don't even know, but it's like $200 a year or something pathetically cheap. Like it's worth doing. I won't go into that right now, but I'm just saying, get your brand down, get your brand professionally represented. And that means use a professional business email. And if you've got any questions about that, just go and search some of your main competitors and see what they're doing. I can promise you hand on heart, they're not running off a Gmail or a Yahoo email. Right. So now we've got the foundations laid. We've secured our assets. We've registered our domains. We've registered our social handles and all that kind of thing. We understand now who our market differentiator is. We know who we want to speak to, who our customers are. We know what our product offering is. We know what we're going to be the best at and what we want to plant our flag as. Now we can move into the part about telling the story better. So when you have all that information down and you have all those things dialed in, you can then take that across to all of the other business media that you're going to need to create. It's going to help you tell that story. And we'll start with a website. And for many of you guys, it will start and end with the website. And some of those organizations are companies that are so micro niche that there's no one looking for them on the internet. So, for example, we recently did a web development project for a client of ours who's based down in South Australia. And his niche is so micro that when we actually did research on search volume for his services, there wasn't any. So there was no point in selling him into an SEO program or a Google ad program, although many companies would, no doubt. But the reality was he just needed a website that could tell his story, because all of the clients that he gained, he was getting through introduction. He was getting through meeting and networking and referrals and things like that. So what he needed was a referral tool that he could then pass to people who were interested or considering working with him, so that he could prove what he does. And that's really important you guys get that dialed in. Like, you can be as good as you are, but you need to be able to tell that story and you need to be able to back it up. And that is where your website becomes powerful. And that's what I encourage you guys to think of your website as. It's not just something you need to have. It's not a necessary evil. It's a tool that you can use to market your business. It's a marketing launch pad. It's a foundation. And the other thing as well, guys, it is not a destination. It is a journey. You are always evolving your website. So we nag our clients all the time. Give us some new photos on this. Update these photos. We want to change these out. We want to, very often when we build a website, we'll be forced to put things like stock images on a website until the client gets their own that we can replace them with. But replacing those images can always happen. Like if you find a better photo of something you guys are doing, then get it on your website. There's no reason not to. Again, you need to start thinking about how can we treat this as an organism, not just a one and done thing. So when we're telling our story, what's important is that we are, first of all, and the question that I often get is, okay, but where do I start here? So when you're looking at the website is kind of a general overview of what it is you do. And what I mean by that is it explains things like, okay, well, this is us. This is our story, about page. And for you guys that don't have an about page, it's the second most viewed page on a website. So you should have an about page. And on your about page, you should have a photo of yourself, especially if you're the business owner. And you should potentially have photos of your team members. Now, here's a little tip for you guys. When you are sending a technician out to a home, it's really, really handy, valuable, and gets a lot of great feedback when you can send them a web page of the team member that's coming to their home, which has a photograph of them. It has a bit about their story. It has their name, their interests, their hobbies, what they do at the company, blah, 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 whatever it might be. But it's a little bit of a rapport builder. Now, I want you to put yourself in the situation of a mother whose husband's gone to work a couple of hours ago. She's called the electrician out because the electrical hot water heater's died or whatever it might be. And she's got two small kids, and all of a sudden they've got this big burly stranger banging on the door, and she's going to let that person into her house. So put yourself in her shoes. How can you lower that barrier of resistance? How can you make her feel more comfortable with letting that person into their house? Sending a little bio with a photo of a team member that's coming is amazing because they can look through the peephole in the door. They can see who the person is. They can relate to that person. They've seen them before. They know it's not made up. They let them in the house, and it's a much nicer experience for people. Anyway, that was a segue. But when you're talking about telling your story on your website, the content that lives on the pages should answer problems. So, for example, when someone goes to your block drain page or whatever it might be, it should talk about some of the things that you guys experience and some of the problems that you resolve through this service so that people can relate to it. And more importantly, when people go to your homepage, it's really, really important that they understand with clarity from the minute they get there what it is you do, who you serve, and that should be cast right above the fold. And when I say above the fold, it's like when you open a web page on your laptop or on your phone or your iPad or whatever it might be, what's the first thing you see there? That message is really, really important. That real estate is paramount because it's very unlikely that if that message is not clear, that people are going to go scrolling down the page to find out more information. The other thing is, and for you guys that are thinking, well, my customers aren't really looking for me on Google. I'm more business to business style company, which is fine. But once again, don't think for a second that just because you're getting a lead from a referral, that they're calling the phone number and they're not Googling the business. I can promise you they are Googling the business before they call the phone number every time. So don't fall into that trap and make sure you cast that message very clear, which ties back to what we were saying and laying the foundations. Get the message right on the website. So when we're talking about telling your story, people say, okay, well, where do we start with this? Like, how do we, and this is, I'm accepting for the moment that you guys have acknowledged the fact that, okay, we need to make this an ongoing thing. We need to invest in this as a process. So what are we going to talk about on our website? And it's a very good question because in truth, if there's a blog that lives on a tradesperson's website, in most cases, it's there for the purpose of SEO. I've never yet come across someone who's like just amazed at a tradesperson's blog. It doesn't happen. It's there for marketing. So it's necessary. Don't get me wrong. It's necessary for the content creation side of things, but the purpose really is for search. It's not really in the interest of your visitors and so on and so forth. I mean, all you got to do is think about it realistically. The way that you can navigate this is tell your story better about things you actually do. Now, here's something that we've seen over the years. Business owners are, and you will see this anywhere, in any vertical, in any business, anywhere in the world. A business owner will sit there and have a conversation face to face with their customer and answer every single objection, answer every single problem they might have with crystal clarity. But as soon as you ask them to record that on a camera, they clam up or they throw excuses like, I don't want to do that, I don't like cameras, I don't like video, blah, 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 whatever it might be. So again, I don't care about excuses. If you want the outcome, do the thing. So when we're talking about telling your story, like how can you educate and nurture people about what you do? Don't fall into the trap as well, guys, of thinking that what you do is not interesting. People are coming to you because they want information about your services. And for somebody who's about to drop $250,000 on a home renovation, they are very, very interested in home renovations. The reason you think they're not interested is because you do it every day and it bores the shit out of you. And you've been doing it for 30 years. But the reality is people are interested. So we live in the information age. People are coming to you for information. It's your responsibility as the business owner to give them that information, and more fool you if you're not. So invest in that strategy, because what you will find is after you start doing this for a while and you start answering some of these problems through content, and if you don't want to do video, whatever, do it as a post on the website. This is how we handle blur. This is how we do blur. This is why you need this. The top 10 questions you need to ask your builder before you renovate, blah, 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 whatever it might be. Like these are things that people, when they're researching your business, if they can get that information without even having to speak to you, come the point in time when they pick the phone up and actually talk to you, you have answered so many of their questions and they are so much further down that sales cycle than you could ever possibly imagine. So what I'm talking about here, guys, is not necessarily a matter of throwing a hat on for something you don't want to do. What I'm talking about here is a way that you can leverage your time better, you can improve your conversions, and at the same time you can build trust and rapport with people that are coming to you for your desired services, specialties, whatever it might be. So I always say to guys, when you are starting with this, when you're telling your story, take the top, like in most businesses that we deal with, most trades, there is 5 to 10 questions that every business owner gets asked over and over and over and over and over and over every time without fail. It's the same 10 questions. They always get asked the same things. And essentially they sound like robots where they've just got to repeat the same thing over and over and over again. This is a great opportunity for you guys to actually document these questions and these answers. So in the instance when the next person calls you up tomorrow and says, oh, I've got another question about, roof pitching or whatever it might be, blah, 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 how to, prolong the life of my hot water heater. You can say, actually, you know what? I'm going to send you some content on that because we've got it. Here's an email with a bunch of different pages on our website. Now, immediately, that just exudes professionalism. Like your competitors are not doing that. And if you've got a video that accompanies it, even better again. Or if you've got a video series, even better again. So there are things that you can do which can really help define you from the next person. Now, in answer to your question, yes, it takes time. But ask yourself this. How much time would it save you if you never, ever had to answer that question again? It would be formidable. It would be a huge advantage for you guys to do that. So the things that you're ticking there are you're leveraging your time, you're building your trust and rapport, you're making yourself stand out against your competitors, you're looking more professional, and at the same time, you're starting to build a following and you're starting to, showcase expertise through education and through content. The days of selling have changed significantly. It's not so much a case anymore of getting on the phone and doing the hard sell. Today, you need to earn the right. You've got to educate. You've got to have touch points. You've got to be able to communicate with people about, the things that they're interested in, because there are sales cycles, and especially if you've got a business that has a larger ticket product, like renovations and building and that kind of thing, you really need to understand that when people are coming to you interested in a product, between the time that they engage with you the first time for information and the time that they pull the trigger and actually accept the proposal and sign on the dotted line, that could be years. So you need to be proactive in that space between the time they come to you and the time they decide to proceed in educating and nurturing them, because they are still interested. They're just in the research phase. Now, if you can provide them with the information relevant to their research, it's an absolute no-brainer who they're going to turn to when they're ready to engage. So consider these things. Now, this is what I was saying to you guys before. It has to become part of the process. And I'll talk to that in a little bit. But essentially, I'll talk to it practically in a sec. But essentially what I'm saying to you guys is you probably already have some sort of process when you're doing a certain job. Hopefully you do anyway. The reason we have process in place is to deliver consistency. So you want to make sure that whatever job you're doing it with consistency. Now, the reason that I say make this part of the process is because if, for example, you don't add to your job checklist or whatever it might be for your technicians to take photographs of the completed project at the end of the job, then you can never show those photographs. Now, chances are you may never anyway, but if you don't have them, you certainly won't. If you have them, you can. So get in the habit, guys, of thinking outside of the box when it comes to marketing and thinking how you can use some of this collateral from a marketing perspective. So if you take, for example, job management tools, which is essential, and as part of the job management tools, you might have compliance photos, right? So the guys come on site, they might take a photo of the area before they do the job. They might take a photo of the area after they do the job, just so there's before and after. So if the client ever turns around and says, hey, there was you put a scratch on my cladding, you could turn around and say, no, we didn't, it was there before, here's a photo, right? So that's great. A lot of you guys are doing that and you should keep doing that. But what I would encourage you to do is think about, okay, well, how can I train my techs to take the same photo, but take it in a way that we can use in our marketing? So it's the same thing. It's just a slightly different spin on it. And it's a way that you can leverage that content beyond compliance. So in the instance, like I just mentioned, the difference might be where they'll be taking a photo of old hot water heater hanging on a wall. The photo might be of the technician undoing the number twos or whatever it is, the unions for the hot water heater. So you can use that in your marketing, So just think a little bit outside of the box for these things and train your team on how they can go about doing it. Because once again, if you've got the media, you can use it. If you don't get it, you can never use it. So what that means is when you want to go and showcase a project that you've done, or if you want to tell your story better, you have to tell that story based on your word only. You've got nothing to back it up. So having the evidence there helps you back it up. Going back to where to start, understand that there is the questions that that you keep getting asked over and over again. That's a perfect place to start with telling your story. Now, answer those questions and see where it takes you. Get feedback on it. Or better still, if you're not sure, then ask people. Customers love to be involved in these things. We do it all the time. We're like, what do you want to hear more about? And they'll tell us straight away. It's fine to ask questions, but again, if you don't make that part of the process as well, then it will also never get done. We see it all the time where we're trying to get people to get Google My Business reviews and these kind of things. It's actually not that hard. You send especially with our new CRM, and go check out tradiehub.net if you're interested in that. But we have an automation built in where essentially it does the Google My Business follow-up for you. Once you finish a job, you apply a tag and it will send out an email. It will send out text messages to the client saying, hey, would you mind leaving us a review, blah, blah, blah. But we've made that part of the process so it gets done. If it doesn't become part of the process, then it just gets forgotten. And so whether it's a checklist or whatever it is, it doesn't matter. I don't care. I'm just saying, get it done. Make it part of your process, whatever that looks like, and get it done. So the irony here of what we're talking about is we're trying to help trade businesses get a greater impact with their message. Now, you can call that marketing if you want. The reality is we're trying to help 10x the results from marketing, because yes, as I said before, the traditional methods are necessary. You've got to have, your leads coming in, which is your Google ads and your SEO and all this kind of stuff. It's important. Don't get me wrong. Any form of marketing, whatever it is, your branding on the car, it's all important, but it will all lead back to your website. And you guys need to put that emphasis on the website. Like, does it reflect the business, the caliber of business we are? Does it convey our message? And how do we make this website convert better? Because I can tell you right now, in so many of the cases that we and the clients that we work with from all over the world, many of them don't have a lead problem. They've got a conversion problem. So they're getting enough traffic to the site and we can see it in the data and the analytics, but they're just not converting. And mostly the reason why is because the message is not clear. And so this doesn't take a lot to improve these things. You don't need a marketing agency to improve these things. You just need to sit down and think about it. So I really encourage you guys to do that. So what could this look like down the track? And I want you to put this in perspective, right? So if I run, again, two parallel businesses next to each other, let's say they've both been around for 2 years and they're both wanting to start marketing. One of them is going to go down, they're both going to go down the traditional methods. They're both going to do their SEO and they're going to do their, maybe Google ads or whatever it might be. But one of the business, as part of that cadence, they're going to adopt a strategy where every single month, they're going to create a page on their website which talks about a job they've done. And on that website, they're going to embed a video. And on that page, they're going to have a client testimonial. And on that page, they're going to have a bit of a story about the job that they've done. Now, 12 months down the track, they've got 12 of those pieces that live on their website. Now, when people are driven to their sites through marketing, if they're searching for information and proof, they've got these pages on their website which they can search through, which does, in truth, 85% of the selling for them. They can see they can do it, they can see who they do it for, and they can see the area they've done it in, and they've answered those questions. And if that relates to them, then it's job sold. It's done. So alternatively, the other business over there that's just doing the marketing stuff, sure, they're getting the traffic, but then they've got to go through the process of trying to speak to that person and basically explain to them what they can do instead of actually being able to show them. That whole mentality around don't tell me, show me. So I just encourage you guys, get out there and show more. Now, this is where it becomes really exciting for you guys. Unlike the industry that I'm in, the marketing agency industry, right? Every single person out there with a webcam and a microphone is professing to be a marketing guru. You just got to jump on YouTube to see it. You guys as trade business owners are in an amazing position of opportunity here. And we're going to be running some training on this. I can guarantee it. And get in our space. If you're not already part of the Facebook group and you're not on our newsletter, just go get on it, because we are going to start building out these trainings. We've got our YouTube channels, which we're starting to really dial in. Head across to YouTube and subscribe on the Site Shed and Tradie Web Guys, because we're going to start really amping the heck out of those platforms. But the beauty of being in a trade space is it's not competitive, which means your competitors are not willing to do the thing to get the result. So you don't have to look far. You just jump on YouTube and you look for the amount of, plumbers that are creating content. There's nowhere near as many as there would be in other verticals, So there's a huge opportunity there for you to plant your flag as the expert in that space. And again, if you don't like video, okay, these are things that you can learn. Don't get me wrong. This is a skill that can be developed. So instead of making excuses about why you don't like something, I'd say get off your ass and actually go and learn how to do it better, because some of these opportunities are incredible. I have confidence that all of you guys out there that are, watching this, you have the skill required to convey this message. And the reason I say that is because, like I said earlier, you do it every day with your customers. You sit there and you have these conversations over and over and over and over and over. I've seen you do it, and you do it really, really well. I'm encouraging you to take the extra step of having that conversation into your phone or into your camera or whatever it is, and then save that as content. And you just do that for 12 months and you come back to me and you let me know how that plays out for you. Because I can guarantee you're going to see some significant results. So anyway, guys, that's enough from me. If you want to speak to me about this on like a business to business level, you can head across to tradiewebguys.com.au. I'm more than happy to have a chat. Again, guys, I hope you enjoy this podcast. Please, if you have any comments, if you have any experience, if you have any feedback about anything that I've said here, I would love to hear it. So post it in the comments. If you're not subscribed to our YouTube channels, go and do it, because we're going to start pumping out a lot more content over there. If you're not on our newsletter, get on the newsletter. If you're not on our Facebook group, head across to Facebook, search the Site Shed and join the private group. There's a page and a group. Like the page, follow the group, join the group, whatever it is. And we can have some, there's some pretty good conversations going on in there. Anyway, guys, I look forward to hearing your results on this thing. I really just want to just cast that message. There's a huge amount of opportunity for you guys out there if you're willing to do the thing. So go and do the thing.